The show opens on the planet Caprica, 58 years before the fall. The fall refers to the time when humanity nearly wiped itself out because of the robots they created. The scene then cuts to friends, Zoe, Ben, and Lacey, who are in a virtual club, where other young people are engaged in group hookups, fist fights, shooting, and wild dancing. The trio watches a girl from a balcony who appears to be a perfect copy of Zoe. Ben and Lacey complain about the hedonism happening around them, but Zoe promises that her copy will change it all. They then use a fictional device known as Holoband to get there, which allows people to interact with realistic simulations in the virtual world. Meanwhile, Zoe's parents, Daniel and Amanda Graystone, are playing tennis when a robot named Serge interrupts with a message from Zoe's academy about her missing classes and using her Holoband during school. When Zoe returns home, her parents scold her, leading to a heated argument between Zoe and Amanda. Frustrated, Zoe goes to her room and uses the Holoband to head back to the bar. The next day, Amanda drops Zoe off at her academy, but Zoe, Ben, and Lacey sneak out to a train station. They overhear a girl named Tamara talking to her father about their journey. The trio boards the same train, but Lacey decides to back out, allowing only Zoe and Ben to board. Inside, Zoe messages Amanda, telling her she forgives her. Suddenly, Ben reveals he has a bomb and detonates it, filling the city with smoke. 2 weeks after the incident, Jordan Durham, an agent from the Global Defense Department, gives a speech blaming a monotheistic group called the Soldiers of the One for the bombing, which promotes the idea of one god, opposing Caprica's belief in many gods. Joseph Adamas, Tamara's father, is also at the event but leaves early. Outside, he meets Daniel Graystone, and they quickly form a friendship. After spending the day together, Daniel invites Joseph to a game, and when Joseph asks if he can bring his son, Williams, Daniel agrees. At Athena Academy, Sister Clarice Willow, the headmistress, comforts Lacey as she mourns Zoe. Lacey talks about Zoe's impressive computer skills, and Sister Clarice suggests she should look into Zoe's work to feel closer to her. This inspires Lacey to visit Zoe's home. At Zoe's house, Amanda is grieving when Lacey arrives. Lacey asks to spend some time in Zoe's room, and Amanda agrees. In Zoe's room, Lacey uses Zoe's Holoband and a computer sheet with the infinity symbol to enter the virtual world. There, she sees a visualization of Zoe covered in blood. Zoe explains that she can feel the real Zoe's death. As Lacey hugs her to comfort her, the blood stains disappear. Just then, Daniel returns home and finds Lacey in Zoe's room, asking why she is there. Lacey hurriedly leaves without answering him. As Daniel looks around, he notices the computer sheet with the infinity symbol and wonders about it. Later, Daniel is in his office trying to test a newly manufactured robot, but struggles to concentrate. He tells his assistant, Cyrus, that he will be leaving work and asks not to be disturbed. Returning home, he attempts to figure out the passcode for the Holoband. Once he cracks it, he enters the bar where Zoe and her friends used to go. While assessing the surroundings, he gets a call from Cyrus, who informs him that a company named Vergez has developed a metacognitive processor, something they have not achieved. Cyrus mentions that Vergez is also securing a government contract, which could make them competitors. Daniel asks him to verify the information before ending the call. He then resumes his journey in the Holoband, where he sees Zoe's visualization. He tries to reach her, but his entry into the room is blocked, forcing him to exit the virtual world. Next, Agent Durham visits Amanda in her office, questioning her about Zoe. He suggests that Zoe might be connected to the terrorist group, and shows Amanda the last message Zoe sent, which she never received. He argues that Zoe must have known something was coming and sent her final message to her mother. Upset, Amanda forces the agent to leave her office. The following day, Lacey returns to Zoe's room and encounters Daniel, who asks her about the V-bar they visit. As Lacey prepares to leave, Daniel insists on seeing Zoe there. When they arrive at the V-bar, Lacey explains its chaotic nature, mentioning activities like violence, drug trade, and disturbing rituals. She recalls Zoe saying that while there is good and bad in the world, and mentions Zoe had a special gift from the gods to create life. Lacey then takes Daniel to the room where Zoe's visualization appears. As they reminisce about their past with Zoe, Daniel asks if he can hold her. Zoe appears in his arms, and Daniel tries to capture the code Zoe used to create the avatar. Suddenly, he pulls out of the Holoband and asks Lacey to leave. Meanwhile, Joseph meets a man named Guatrao, who urges him to threaten Caprica's Minister of Defense, Val Chambers, as he mourns his loss. Later, Joseph discusses his meeting with his brother, Sam Adamas, who encourages him to follow through with Guatrao's request. The next day, Agent Durham visits Athena Academy to question Lacey about Zoe and Ben's involvement with the STO. Lacey initially refuses to answer but walks out when he repeats his questions. After Agent Durham leaves, Lacey confronts Sister Clarice about their involvement with the STO. Sister Clarice reveals that she isn't the only one seeking the truth, and admits her own connection to the organization. Simultaneously, Joseph takes William to a game where Daniel invited them. Afterward, Daniel brings Joseph into a virtual world using holobands, where he introduces him to a visual representation of his daughter, Zoe. This disturbs Joseph, as he realizes their daughters are gone. Panicking, he exits the virtual experience. In the real world, Daniel explains that he has a way to bring their daughters and Joseph's wife back, but he needs a metacognitive processor from Verghese. Later, Joseph meets Sam and asks him to help steal the device from Verghese. Sam warns him that the owner of Verghese is a close friend of Guatrao and would never allow theft from him. Joseph counters by offering to do a task for Guatrao in exchange for Sam's help. Sam agrees, and Joseph heads to confront Val in his office. Val threatens Joseph instead, saying that the government will soon scrutinize Guatrao and his business. Joseph then leaves the office. Later that night, Sam quietly enters Val's home and kills him. At Daniel's residence, Joseph brings him the processor he got from Verghese. After receiving it, Daniel hands Joseph a holoband to connect him with Tamara. Once in the virtual world, Tamara expresses her discomfort, prompting Joseph to abruptly exit and leave the residence. Later, Daniel uses the holoband to meet Zoe. She explains that the real Zoe was not just skipping classes. She left Caprica for good because she felt out of place. Zoe found God in Geminin and was heading there. Daniel then returns to the real world, downloads Zoe's avatar to the Verghese processor, and inserts it into a robot he built. However, once he connects the processor, the robot quickly loses its data and collapses. The next day, Daniel showcases another demonstration of his robots, securing a contract with the government. While Cyrus mentions their success, Daniel clarifies that this was not his true purpose. In the next room, the robot with Zoe's avatar suddenly activates and calls out to Lacey for help. Daniel and his team later arrive to examine the robot. They inform him that the chips he used only work with the original robot. To investigate the issue further, Daniel asks them to send the robot to his home lab. Meanwhile, at the academy, Sister Clarice invites Lacey to lunch, and she agrees. After class, Lacey contacts Zoe to share the invitation. Just as Daniel's team approaches the lab, Zoe abruptly cuts off the conversation and returns to her original position. As two men transfer the robot to Daniel's residence, the robot struggles to break free from its restraints. Fortunately, one of the men removes a disc from its body, causing it to collapse and allowing them to regain control. They then take the robot to the lab for diagnostics. After inserting the chip, the robot activates, but when one of them tries to inject something into it, the robot bites off his finger. At Daniel's house, Agent Durham visits Amanda, who is looking at memories of Zoe. He asks if she knows anything about Ben, introducing him as Zoe's boyfriend. Amanda denies any relationship and closes the door, ending the conversation. At the same time, Joseph tries to reach Daniel but cannot get through since Daniel is watching a game. Joseph leaves a message asking him to call back and heads out to pick up William. He accidentally stops at Tamara's school. At home, while having dinner with William and his mother-in-law, Joseph is startled by memories of Tamara sitting next to him. The next day, Amanda visits Lacey and asks what Zoe was running away from. Lacey does not share much and only mentions that Zoe said they would have a new family in Geminin. Afterwards, Lacey joins Sister Clarice for lunch. There, she meets everyone from Sister Clarice's household and finds herself drawn to a young man named Nestor, who also expresses sympathy for Zoe's loss. At Daniel's home, Amanda suggests he attend the one-month memorial for the bomb attack, but Daniel declines, saying he has a picky robot to work on. He continues to tinker with the robot, puzzled about why the chips only function in that specific model. Later, he tells Amanda that he will go to the memorial with her the next day and shares his feelings about the day of the bomb attack. Sam and William are walking down the street, chatting as they go. Suddenly, Sam picks up a trash can and throws it through a restaurant window before casually strolling past. William is taken aback and asks Sam about his reckless behavior, but Sam avoids the question and insists they keep walking. Moments later, they are confronted by the police and handcuffed for their actions. After some time, they are released. As they walk home, Sam advises William that if someone tries to make him feel guilty, he should uncover their own guilt and use it against them. Once William gets home, he decides to use Sam's advice when his father scolds him for skipping school. Joseph tries to explain the importance of attending their tribal school, emphasizing that it helps maintain their family connections. In response, William expresses his feelings of disconnection, saying they no longer have a family to belong to. Hearing this, Joseph feels a wave of sadness for his son. He approaches William and wraps his arms around him in a comforting hug, hoping to provide some reassurance and support during this difficult time. Later, Lacey finishes lunch at Sister Clarice's house and heads home. Just as she arrives, she receives a call from Zoe, who invites her to visit her at her parents' place. Lacey rushes over and is shocked to find Zoe's avatar trapped inside a robot. They sit down together to discuss Zoe's feelings about being confined in this way. Lacey tries to comfort her, saying that at least she is now in the real world, just as the real Zoe once imagined her to be. The next day, Daniel and Amanda attend a memorial event where people share their memories of their lost loved ones. Amanda spots some parents from Zoe's academy and urges Daniel to talk to them, but he refuses, so Amanda decides to approach them on her own. While she looks through pictures of those who have passed, she encounters Ben's mother, Natalie. Natalie hands Amanda some of Zoe's belongings, mentioning that Ben loved her very much. As Amanda opens the package, she discovers a metal infinity sign inside. She also encounters Agent Durham afar, which reminds her of his earlier accusations about Zoe's involvement in the attack. At the same time, Joseph approaches Daniel, expressing his desire to meet Tamara again. Daniel explains that the Avatar has disappeared from the holoband, so he cannot facilitate a meeting right now. As Daniel talks with Joseph, they hear Amanda speaking into a microphone, claiming that Zoe might have caused the attack and suggesting she was connected to the terrorists involved with the STO. She holds up the infinity sign that Natalie just gave her, emphasizing her point. Following this revelation, Daniel quickly takes Joseph away in his car while a crowd gathers, shouting and cursing at them as they drive off. The revelation sparks a media frenzy, drawing a lot of public attention. Amanda resigns from her job just before reporters swarm her outside the office. While speaking to the media, she faces aggression from the crowd, who throw glass bottles at her. In a panic, Amanda drives away from the chaotic scene. At the academy, Lacey finds herself bullied for her friendship with Zoe, who is now labeled a terrorist. Meanwhile, Daniel chooses to work out at a low-end gym instead of a high-class one. Cyrus, aware of the situation, suggests that Daniel should consult a public relations expert for a defense strategy, but Daniel declines the offer. When he exits the gym, Sam confronts him, pulling him aside and brutally attacking him for raising a daughter who is now seen as a terrorist responsible for Tamara's death, his own niece. Joseph arrives at the scene and demands to see Tamara and his wife, adding to the tension. Daniel tries to explain to Joseph that he has lost all the data and that the computer programming ended with Zoe. Still skeptical, Joseph leaves the place. Alongside the incident, William skips class again and helps out at the bar. When some men start teasing him, Sam arrives and takes William away. They plan for Sam to call the school and provide an excuse for William's absence. At the academy, Sister Clarice calls Lacey in and tells her she can share anything with her, just like Zoe used to do. She mentions that she was Zoe's confidante, helping to lighten her burden, and offers to do the same for Lacey. However, Lacey declines and walks out of the room. Feeling hurt, Daniel returns home, only to hear the same distressing news everywhere. Frustrated, he turns off the television and heads to the lab to treat his wounds. A little later, Amanda enters the lab with a small cut above her eyebrow. They share stories about the incidents they have faced, and Amanda begins to treat Daniel's injuries. As she works, Daniel reminds her that she should have thought about the consequences of her words in public. Amanda replies that she was in shock herself, realizing Zoe had a secret relationship and was involved in an organization that triggered a bomb on a train filled with people. Daniel argues that they do not truly know what happened or who is responsible for the bombing, while Zoe's avatar listens quietly from the corner. After a moment of tension, they both start to calm down, and their emotional connection deepens as they share an intimate moment. At the station, Agent Durham is discussing matters with his colleagues when their supervisor arrives with a video recording. The footage reveals that Ben was captured a year ago, with some wires found in his bag. Earlier, one of Agent Durham's colleagues had questioned Ben for violating the curfew rules. When asked about the questioning session, she admits she completely forgot about it and feels it was not relevant back then. This frustrates the supervisor, who storms out of the office. The team then decides to search Graystones' residence. Meanwhile, at Graystones' home, Zoe manages to find a way into the virtual world, even though she is trapped inside a robot. Once she accesses the virtual space, she sends Lacey a link so she can join her. Outside her house, Lacey puts on the holoband and enters the virtual world, where she reunites with Zoe's avatar. They chat about their lives, and Lacey mentions that Sister Clarice has been acting strangely. She suggests that if Zoe and Sister Clarice are working together, Zoe should tell her about the avatar. However, Zoe's avatar declines, explaining that the real Zoe did not trust Sister Clarice for a reason. As they talk, they explore a dark room in search of a door. Lacey eventually discovers a door and opens it, revealing a bright light that exposes Tamara, stunning both Zoe and Lacey. Tamara introduces herself and expresses her discomfort at not feeling her heartbeat. Lacey and Zoe wonder if she is an avatar created by Daniel. The three of them step through the door together, hopeful that it will lead to their freedom. They arrive at the V-Bar, where Tamara expresses a need for some fresh air. As Zoe tries to guide her, Lacey insists that Zoe should also consider the limited time they have. Tamara then interjects, saying she can find her own way, and separates from Zoe and Lacey. Zoe then asks Lacey to find Kian, Ben's best friend, who would know how to escape Caprica and safely reach Geminon. She urges Lacey to take her to the right place, emphasizing that she has an important purpose there. However, Lacey is unsure about Zoe's avatar's true purpose in Geminon. Zoe reassures her that the real Zoe had a wonderful purpose, and insists that they must get her, in the robot's body, to Geminon. Daniel is seen discussing the situation with a public relations expert recommended by Cyrus to manage the fallout from his daughter's label as a terrorist. The PR expert suggests that Daniel should make an emotional appeal to the public. However, Daniel firmly declines, unwilling to present his daughter in such a negative light on television, whether as a terrorist or a troubled child. Meanwhile, Sister Clarice is seen wearing holobands as she travels to a different virtual world. There, she meets someone she calls the Prophecy, Alvo. She informs him that she is getting closer to finding Zoe's avatar, who is destined to help the soldiers of the STO serve the Lord through apotheoses. Alvo expresses concern that the process could be risky and urges Sister Clarice to act quickly. In a different scene, Lacey confronts Kevin about his involvement with the STO. At first, he denies it, believing there is nothing to discuss without Ben being present. Lacey then reveals that she made a promise to Zoe before her death to deliver something secret to Geminon. This piques Kevin's interest, and he agrees to see what he can do to help her before leaving. Meanwhile, Joseph visits Daniel's house to see Tamara. However, when they enter the virtual world, they discover that Tamara is not there, just as Daniel had mentioned earlier. Daniel expresses his regret for not being able to provide Tamara in the virtual space. Frustrated and unable to see his daughter, Joseph eventually decides to leave. At the station, Agent Durham and his colleague discuss the need for a warrant to search Graystones' house. They hope this will impress their supervisor, as they feel the pressure of allowing Ben to slip through their fingers a year ago. They want to regain the credibility they have lost. Concurrently, Daniel is feeling the weight of Amanda's words, which are affecting both his reputation and the finances of his company. The stress is mounting as he grapples with the consequences of their conversation. At Joseph's home, he finds Sam and suggests a drastic solution to their problems. He proposes that Sam balance the loss of both himself and Daniel by eliminating Amanda. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.